What's going on? This is Theo Greminger. We're about 20 days out from the NFL season. You're starting to think about your draft. You're thinking about going 0 RB or hero RB. In this kind of season, that's a great strategy to have. Wide receivers have been pushed way up the board. You're also seeing quarterbacks getting pushed up the board. So if you want exposure to some of these guys like Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, maybe you want to take Travis Kelce in the first round. Maybe you want to take Patrick Mahomes or a Jalen Hurts or a Josh Allen in the top 3 rounds of drafts. And maybe you want to keep hammering the wide receiver position to make sure it doesn't dry up on you when you start getting to those middle round picks. Maybe you want to dive in with a true 0 RB build, or maybe you want to take that one running back and then you want to really punt RB2. These are viable strategies this season. I think that these are going to win people a lot of money this season, but you got to be able to do it right. And I'm going to give you a couple of targets here. If you want more, check out my article on playerprofiler.com, 0 and hero RB targets. But I'm going to give you an extra one here because you're watching the video. Let's start out. I'm not going to give you anybody in the first round, second round, third round, fourth round, or fifth round. That's a waste for this exercise. Build your team with the strongest possible selections in those 5 rounds, and then we're just going to get started. Starting out in the 6th round, you want to take one of these running backs. Either these guys can be a top-notch RB2 for you in a hero RB build, or these guys can be foundational picks for you in a 0 RB build. First back I'm looking at is Cam Akers. I think Cam Akers is set to have a big season in Los Angeles. His backups right now are Kyren Williams and a few other people battling out for the number 3 job. I think Cam Akers is going to see a ton of volume. We love the way he ended the season last year. If he's there in the 6th round, consider him. If you don't like Cam Akers, Rachaad White is going to be there in the 6th round as well. Rachaad White last year had a tremendous season catching the football with Tom Brady under center in Tampa, despite the presence of Leonard Fournette. This year, entering his 2nd year in the league, he has a chance to take a big breakout type role in the Tampa Bay offense. No one wants to draft Buccaneers, but Rachaad White is going to have a really big season this year, and I love him for this sort of build. You don't want to reach for him. Just wait, and when he's there in the mid-6, jump on him. Another player here is Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, weeks back, was going in the 8th round, 9th round. People were worried about him starting out the season poorly because of his health. Javonte Williams is back. Javonte Williams is playing in the preseason, and he's looking healthy, and he's running strong. There's a Sean Payton offense. They have plans for Javonte Williams. Consider Javonte Williams right here in the 6th round. He's a very strong value. And the last running back in the 6th round to consider, Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce was a 4th round pick out of Florida last year for a very bad Houston offense, and he still had almost 1,000 yards rushing. This year, he's right there in the 6th round for you. Devin Singletary signing got a couple people a little nervous, but Dameon Pierce is running way ahead. Singletary's seen a lot more work in the preseason because they're resting up Dameon Pierce. He is the foundational piece for what should be a not so great offense in Houston, but there's a rookie quarterback behind center in CJ Stroud. They're going to lean on Dameon Pierce. So to go over that 6th round, you want to grab Cam Akers, Rachaad White, Javonte Williams, or Dameon Pierce. One of those 4 is going to be a great way to get started. And we're not done. In the 7th round, my favorite selection right now is James Cook. James Cook sometimes is getting steamed up here. Sometimes he's going in the 5th and 6th round. Remember, these ADPs are from high stakes leagues in the FFPC. You may not have to reach as high for some of these guys in your home leagues. Check your ADP. But James Cook, sitting there in the 6th round, is a 2nd-year player. He was extremely explosive in a limited sample size last year as a rookie in Buffalo. Devin Singletary moved on to Houston. James Cook is set to have a big breakout season. He has the kind of catching ability that we want out of the backfield for this sort of a build. He also has the explosiveness to break off big plays. He's never going to be the kind of guy who's going to see 25 carries in a game, but he's going to do it on the ground and through the air, and we love drafting players attached to a Josh Allen offense because we know they're going to be opportunities to score. Don't like James Cook? You don't have to take him here, because in the 7th round, you also have James Conner. Conner is another boring type selection from an offense, much like Rachaad White in Tampa. No one wants to draft Arizona Cardinals right now, but James Conner is going to possibly lead all NFL running backs in touches for the first month of the season. The Cardinals are going to give him the ball as much as he can handle. This is a volume-based play in an offense that could struggle. James Conner also has caught the ball well last year, so look for James Conner to be a guy that's heavily leaned on no matter who's behind center in Arizona. James Conner, every year, if you look at the points per game for running backs in the NFL, James Conner's been up there. I think that James Conner is being severely underrated right now. I got him in the 8th round recently. So I expect him to go in the 7th, but some drafts he drops even further. You also have David Montgomery. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. Anybody who listens to Player Profiler knows that Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that I've been drafting a ton of in high stakes. He's a guy that I think is the RB2 in Dynasty overall. But Jahmyr Gibbs is not going to do it all, and he's certainly not going to do it all on the ground. David Montgomery has an opportunity to absorb the Jamal Williams role, plus he's going to get the goal line carries in Detroit for an offense that we think should score a lot of points. David Montgomery is a well-rounded running back. We saw him have success in Chicago. Now he comes over to Detroit in a great situation where two running backs are going to put up fantasy points. I think Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery both finish inside the top 24 at the position. David Montgomery is also an underrated receiver. Last year, he had his highest yards per catch in his entire career. Look for him to do a little bit more than expected through the air, but he's mostly going to get it done on the ground. You also have Isaiah Pacheco. We all saw what the guy could do in the NFL playoffs last year. This year, he's very underrated. People do not want to draft him. You're seeing him go in the 7th and 8th round. But when the season starts, you're talking about the guy who's going to have the goal line carries in one of the league's best offenses. He's a bruising between the tackles runner with explosive ability. He's extremely physical. And there's been some whispers outside of Chiefs camp that they're working him in the screen game. This is a guy who didn't catch a lot of passes, but in that game last year against Cincinnati in the playoffs, we saw him have a 5-catch game when Patrick Mahomes was a little bit hobbled. So we know that he's capable of doing it. Maybe Kansas City makes him into like a 30, 35 catch guy. If he can get to that level, then he's going to pay off at ADP here because he's got an opportunity to score a lot of touchdowns in this offense. Let's get to Mr. Swift real quick. This is polarizing. Some people are not on DeAndre Swift, but I am. DeAndre Swift in that Philadelphia offense, the weekly usage might be a little bit annoying, but hardly any players have as much contingent upside as Swift. We've seen Swift be a very effective fantasy player throughout the years. Now he's in one of the league's best offenses. And people say, Jalen Hurts doesn't throw to running backs. Well, Jalen Hurts hasn't had a running back with this sort of receiving ability until now in DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift was held out of preseason game 2, only played a few snaps preseason game 1. I think they're trying to keep DeAndre Swift nice and ready for game 1 of the season. We're going to talk about a couple other Philadelphia Eagles running backs as targets in later rounds. So if you're not on Swift, by all means, just ignore me on this one. But I'm drafting some DeAndre Swift. And I love pairing up DeAndre Swift with another Eagles back in this sort of a build. We'll talk about shortly. So in our 7th round, James Conner, James Cook, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, and Isaiah Pacheco. 9th round, Antonio Gibson. Gibson's never averaged less than 11 points per game in PPR. He's averaged 14 points per game plus twice. Now he's entering year 4. Look for him to take on the Jerick McKinnon plus role in the Eric Bieniemy offense. Besides Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin, Washington really needs playmakers. We've seen Antonio Gibson be able to do it on the ground. We've seen Antonio Gibson be able to do it through the air as a receiver. This is an explosive athlete entering year 4. I love him in the 9th round right now. I think he could be the kind of guy that could beat ADP by several rounds if everything bounces his way. Jerick McKinnon finished inside the RB2 line last year. Jerick McKinnon does not have what Antonio Gibson has. You also have Rashad Penny. Again, another Eagles running back. A couple people are kind of sour on Penny. Penny has maybe less outs than DeAndre Swift, but if Penny hits, Penny could really hit. We saw what happened with Miles Sanders last year, where Miles Sanders had this incredible year scoring touchdowns. Rashad Penny is perfectly capable of filling in that sort of a role in Philadelphia. You also have A.J. Dillon. The market has soured on A.J. Dillon. Last year, you're talking about a guy who was being drafted inside the top 24 running backs easily. Drafts, the late ones last year, he steamed up big time. He let people down. The start of the season was painful for A.J. Dillon drafters. But when the season completed, A.J. Dillon had a really strong end of the season. Dillon has a couple of outs here. Aaron Jones is getting older. Aaron Jones has not missed time for the last few years. Dillon, if Aaron Jones were to go down, would be a top 15 play at the position. He's got pretty decent receiving ability for a larger back, and we know he can pound it between the tackles. You also have the fact that Green Bay might lean on the running backs a little bit more this year to protect Jordan Love in his first year as starter. So A.J. Dillon in that 9th round. I don't like him as much as Gibson, but he's definitely a consideration in the 9th round. I also like Zach Charbonnet. I know the Podfather is huge on Ken Walker, and I like Ken Walker as well. But Zach Charbonnet, there in that 9th round, if Ken Walker were to miss time, Zach Charbonnet would be a near RB1 any week in a Ken Walker-less backfield in Seattle. Zach Charbonnet can catch the ball. Zach Charbonnet is effective around the goal line. This is a big, strong back who can catch the ball. Don't overthink it. There's a reason he's being selected in the 9th round. Don't shy away from him. He's a solid pick here. 10th round, Tank Bigsby. Same argument as Zach Charbonnet. Travis Etienne is the starter right now. We like Travis Etienne at Player Profiler, but I think Doug Peterson also really likes Tank Bigsby, his third-round draft pick out of the University of Auburn. Tank Bigsby is an underrated receiver. They didn't throw the ball to Travis Etienne. Tank Bigsby is also a larger running back. Tank Bigsby is going to have weekly touches, everybody, to start out the year. And if anything happens to Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby could be the league winner. He might be one of the best handcuffs in football right now, and he hasn't even played an NFL down in the regular season. I also love Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren has looked fantastic this preseason, playing behind Najee Harris. Well, last year as an undrafted free agent rookie, Jaylen Warren had 29 receptions. Najee Harris had over 70 receptions as a rookie, dropped down to the 40s in year 2. And one of the main reasons for that was not Big Ben moving on. It's because they like to throw the ball to Jaylen Warren, because Jaylen Warren is a baller. This guy's not as big as Najee Harris, but he can really go. I love Jaylen Warren this year. I think he's the kind of guy that if you're in a pinch, you can put him in the flex, whether or not Najee Harris is out there. Going down the list, I also like Devon Achane. Achane got a knock in the shoulder. I don't know how bad it is, but we'll take a look at that. So definitely check before your draft and see the extent of Devon Achane's injury. But if he's healthy, you want to target him. 11th round. Tyler Algier, clear handcuff to Bijan Robinson. Algier had over 1,000 yards last year. This is one of my favorite handcuffs in football. He's also going to get some weekly touches. 12th round, Zamir White, the clear handcuff to Josh Jacobs. Zamir White also looks pretty good this preseason when Jacobs is away from the team. Kenneth Gainwell, 12th rounder. Gainwell's moved up a little bit. There's some Gainwell love out there. If you draft DeAndre Swift, prioritize Kenny Gainwell and double down on them. Even in redraft, a 7th rounder and a 12th rounder together is not so much draft capital that it's going to kill you. This is not like drafting a guy in the 4th round and then drafting a guy in the 8th round. This is a little bit easier to manage. I like being able to draft both of them. I think there's contingent upside. Tyjae Spears, clear handcuff to Derrick Henry. Tyjae Spears is an absolute baller. Derrick Henry's 29 years old. He's got more carries than any other running back in the league. The big dog's a beast. I hope he doesn't get hurt, but if he does go down, Tyjae Spears is a top 15 play at the position every single week. Little later on, Jerome Ford, handcuffed to Nick Chubb. He's an interesting player right around the 13th round. 14th and 15th round, I'm looking at Chuba Hubbard, and in the 15th round, I'm looking at Chase Brown. Chuba Hubbard behind Miles Sanders, Chase Brown in somewhat of a mix with Chris Evans in Cincinnati, but if Joe Mixon were to miss time, I think the rookie would get some touches. 16th round, Josh Kelly, backing up Austin Eckler. Ty Chandler, backing up Alexander Madison, and Ty Chandler should get some receiving work every week. I'm going to give you a bonus pick. Kyren Williams, if you're in the end game here and you're drafting high stakes, FFPC, NFFC, or you have a home league that's very deep, Kyren Williams, not Zach Evans, it's Kyren Williams as the handcuff to Cam Akers, who I discussed earlier. Kyren Williams should see weekly touches, and you can get him in like the 19th round. Check out my article on Player Profiler if you want a little bit more in depth. I hope you crush your leagues. Stick with us all season. We got everything you need to win your league and keep it going at Player Profiler.